It's a problem that many in our community have been afraid to talk about until now. Violent crime, specifically black-on-black crime.
So in our series, 10 Years Later, A Changed City, Tanya O'Rourke takes an in-depth look at the impact of this problem and what can be done to solve it.
Let's see. Jacomin, would you read about Adam?
This fourth grader is being tutored in reading.
Adam was feeling better. Adam was feeling better.
They all are. Reading, as they say, is fundamental. But to what? And if reading opens doors, then if you can't read, which doors close?
The ability for a fourth grader to read well is important not just for their future, but perhaps for societies as well. This story is to report on one of the most disturbing developments of the last 10 years, black-on-black violent crime. It's something you see on the news virtually every night.
Cincinnati police on the scene of a fatal shooting. This is a live picture of the Cincinnati police also investigating a shooting in Evanston.
In the 5 years prior to the riots, the homicide rate in Cincinnati never rose higher than 40. After the riots, that number has increased to a high of 88, bouncing a little up and down, but never has it returned to the lower levels we saw before the riots. And what statistics show is that black males are being killed far more often than any other group.
The vast majority of the people that are being murdered are African American in the city of Cincinnati. The vast, vast majority. Well outside of the 40% of the population that it should be.
Hamilton County Prosecutor Joe Dieters didn't hold that job in 2001, but he knows the statistics. He sees that black-on-black violent crime has surged.
In 2009, the city of Cincinnati did not have a single white male victim of a homicide.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that we have a subset in the underclass in Cincinnati which is committing a lot of violent crime, and they tend to be blacks. And the reality is that you almost always commit murder within your racial classification. So when we've got a young black man up in the coroner's office, it's almost always a result of another young black man shooting him.
That same year, 2009, when no white men were killed, 44 black men were killed in Cincinnati, 11 black women.
Why are there so many homicides in the African American community?
I'm not a sociologist. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that in our juvenile system, when you go to juvenile prison, I have been told that over 2/3 of those kids in juvenile prison were raised by their mothers only or their grandmothers only, and they had no male authority figure in the household.
Dieter's belief is not his alone.
The destruction of the black family is the main cause, the root cause for all of these ailments that we see in our community. The violence, the teenage pregnancy, the infancy mortality rate in our community. And people who are watching this, many of them know the history, that in 1920, 90% of black families had a father in the house. In 1960, 80% of black families had a father in the house. In 2011, it's only 30%, 3 out of 10.
What bothers me is it's okay for a young male to impregnate 8 different women. So it's almost like a badge of honor in some parts of the community. Young girls, 15 years old, having babies. You know, I see a girl on the street who's 18 pushing a baby stroller and she's pregnant again. And you're just like, do these kids have any chance at all?
Is family structure part of it? Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
How much part of it?
I wouldn't say it is the factor. I think it's one of several.
David Singleton is the executive director of the Ohio Justice and Policy Center, a public interest firm that works for criminal justice reform. He believes the reason there is so much violence in the black community is much more complex.
The clustering of poverty in a densely populated and segregated, racially segregated inner city. That's number one.
Singleton says the high school dropout rate, lack of employment opportunities, and what he calls the violent subculture of the drug trade are 3 more factors.
And then fifth, I think it's partly self-hatred. I think when you combine all those factors together, it is a toxic brew that results in the black-on-black crime that we see that's very alarming and very disturbing.
So how do you stop crime? How do you prevent a murder before it happens? There may be a bellwether. Do you remember those children reading?
The song, I Need You to Learn the Words.
Statistics show learning to read at an early age is important, but the 4th grade year, it's crucial. It can literally keep you out of prison.
You can guesstimate, what the crime rate is going to be based on educational achievement by the 4th grade, specifically reading. And that is really troubling.
The statistics say 2/3 of the children who aren't reading well by the end of grade 4 will either end up in jail or on welfare.
You've got private prison building companies looking at 4th grade reading statistics to figure out how many prison beds they need to build, how many prisons they need to build. That's how cynical it's all become.
But while we may need to fix education, environment, and the amount of opportunity, some say personal responsibility and just acknowledging the problems are vital.
The sad part, and this is going to be controversial because people don't ever want you to say certain things, but the sad part is the African Americans haven't stepped up. We've created more opportunities, yet I'm just not seeing enough young people finish high school. I'm not seeing enough young people go to college. The opportunity is there, the money's there somewhat, but people just aren't stepping up.
I think we've got to have the willpower to come together as a community, white, black, people of all races and economic backgrounds. We've got to come together and talk about this and not just say, well, the events of 2001 have long passed and now we don't have a problem. We do have a problem, and we need to all come together and try and figure out how to solve it.
And that was Tanya O'Rourke reporting. This is your opportunity to join the dialogue, to listen, to engage, and to act. There is a list of ways to do those things on our website, WCPO.com/10yearslater.